Finally, salawat and salam also delivered to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness into the brightness. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our students, the presentation today is about sustainable finance and climate change. Now, I will read the agenda today. The first session is introduction delivered by Dr. Dimas. And then I will introduce the CV, curriculum vitae, our speakers today. And then the second session is presentation time. And the third session is opinion, question and answer session. And the last session is the closing. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, our presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Desi Rahmawati. Today I will act as a moderator at this event. I am the lecturer of economic policy and development in Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and I will introduce our speaker today. This is Dr. Embarika Mustafa. Her education in PhD in economics with the major health economics, University of Aberdeen, and then master's students in international trade and economic cooperation in South Korea. Is this right? South Korea. Okay, and the diploma in Microsoft Solution Development in, what is it? Raya Academy for Information Technology in Egypt. Okay, this is her background, and then teaching experience, teaching assistant in business school, University of Aberdeen, and then the trainer in Cairo, and then lab assistant in Information Technology Training Center, Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics, Government of Egypt, Cairo, and then what is it? Exam invigilator, business school, University Aberdeen, and many research experience. So many I can see here. So maybe I cannot deliver for you because we have a limitation time. But our speaker today is have a lot of experience, guys. Okay, and then now let's open our meeting by saying Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, thank you for your CV, Dr. Embarika, and then I will given the first presenter. Please welcome Embarika Mustafa, PhD. Next turn is for the speaker, Embarika. Time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Daisy, very much for your introduction. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm really
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I'm really pleased to be with you today and to discuss with you. Just have one session. I'm really happy with that. With this enriched and intensive summer program about sustainable development. And today I'm going to discuss with you a very important topic related to sustainable development and finance and banking. It's about green finance and climate change. So let's start, guys, before iftar. If Dr. Daisy shares the slides, please. Okay, I can share my slides. Dr. Daisy, are you going to share the slides, or it's me who's going to share the slides? Can anyone see the slides?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Okay, great. Let's start. So as I said that we are going today to discuss green finance and climate change. Basically, in this session, we are going to discuss very interesting topics. We need to know first, what does it mean, green finance, and its key principles? And also, what does it mean, climate change, environmental risks, and how it affects the banking and capital markets? And then we need to understand also how can stimulate the green finance to keep up with the development or sustainability development. This also would be the role of central banks and supervisory authorities. And then we will try to deliver some cases studied in other developing and developed countries that try to keep up with the sustainable finance. By this lecture, guys, I would expect you, after this lecture, to know that to have an in-depth understanding of economic concepts and principles in climate change and the green finance or sustainable finance, understand and analyze the potential risks and opportunities of environmental trends for financial markets, and also to try to explain the range of financial instruments and initiatives regarding to integrating climate change and sustainability into financial policy, and also to explain the role of different actors in climate and sustainable finance, like central bank, as I said, and other cooperative or corporate banks and institutional investors, and etc. So what does it mean, green finance? Green finance is all forms of investment or lending. We need lending like loans, okay? Bank gives loans, right? Which these investment or these forms of investment and loans consider environmental effect and enhance environmental sustainability. So here there are many aspects of green finance. Most importantly, sustainable investment and banking, where the investment decision are taken based on environmental screening and risk assessment. Means when they take investment decision, they try to think about environment, okay, and try to assess risks might affect the environment. So why they do that? To meet sustainability standards, okay? So this is the general concept. If we try to narrow down this concept, we will see that the green central banking can be defined like the building or object takes account of environmental risks, like, for example, climate change, what we are going to discuss today in the next slide, and try to see, like have some assessment on the material impact on short-run and long-run stability and development of financial sector and eventually the macroeconomy. So here we know that the traditional rule of a central bank is to respond to the environmental externalities and to try to reduce the bad or negative effects. But here, when we try to have green central bank, this bank is going to move from the traditional core responsibility to new responsibility. Traditional core of responsibility of just safeguarding the macroeconomy and the financial stability and price stability to be an activist, to have an activist role of in greening the economy, not only to respond the negative effects or the environmental externalities. No, he's going now to try to change the policy, adopt the financial policy in order to help in greening the economy. Okay. So what is climate change? Climate change is all about the weather. And we guys here, we can observe these changes. Yeah? Like what? Like heat stress. It's very hot now in the summer in some countries, and it's very cold in other countries in the winter, yeah? And some countries, they don't have any summer anymore, and some countries, they have just summer all the season. And also the poor air quality and shortage of water supply, or maybe the high level or the rise of level of the sea. So all this is climate change. And basically climate change has very adverse effects, okay, on everyone on the earth, from animals, human, and objects. What I mean by objects, like building, like firms, tangible objects like firms, and intangible. What I mean by intangible, the business itself, the financial business, all right, and the banking. So it really has, like, as we can see from this diagram or like drawing, the climate change has a very adverse effect on everyone. So, but particularly, the climate change affect vulnerable groups. Why? Like poor people, developing countries, okay? Why it affects the vulnerable groups? Because of their demographic, like their demographic pressure. Like some countries like Egypt or Indonesia, they have large number of population, so it will be more affected than other countries, yeah? Or geographically, some countries, because of the climate change, might have or might be affected badly more than other countries because of the heat, stress of the heat, or maybe because of the coldness. And also based on the availability of resources. So some countries, they have scarce resources, and if anything damage to these resources, if anything happen to these resources or damage, this will be more affected than other countries. So we call them what? Vulnerable groups. So let's focus on the financial costs for firms and banking. So climate change might affect the financial sector and the costs and the money supply, all right, and the capital market, and also struggle to access to financial services. So environmental risks and climate change in particular have been recognized by the central bank and financial regulators as a material risks to stability of individual financial institution and financial system at large. Because like lack of agriculture production, for example, will raise the price, okay? The high price mean high rate of inflation, and then we have high rate of inflation, and with the scarce resources, decrease of output. So this will let the financial sector affect by the price and costs. So we will not have the price stability and will not have financial stability. So this is a very big rule on the financial sector and the central banks to take actions against the climate change and to try to save the financial sector. here, from these figures, we can see, for example, in Indonesia, the impact of climate-related disaster in Asian countries. If we look at Indonesia, for example, we will see that the total people affected, the average total people affected by the climate change, 37, I guess, is million people, all right? And the total loss between 2000 and 2019 was 44 US dollars, million US dollars. And the total loss of the share of GDP was almost only 0.1 percentage. And overall losses was $15 million in Indonesia. So now we need to think, or we need to narrow down the negative effect of climate change on the financial sector. So let's try to ask ourselves these questions. Why central banks should be concerned with aligning the finance with the sustainable growth and development? Like, why the central bank should take into account the climate change, okay, and align the financial policy with the sustainable growth and development? There is so many reasons for that, but I try to, in brief, to give you the relevant and more important reasons. As I said before in the earlier slides, that the tradition of the central bank is to have the safeguarding responsibility, yeah, to low and stable inflation. And what does it mean? This primary focus of central bank on price stability. So inflation is all about the price. So the central bank try to stable the prices, all right, based on the theoretical or empirical understanding, and to try to stable the inflation. But here we will ask the central bank to move from this traditional rule to a secondary rule. Yeah, it's secondary goal or rule, but it's very, very important in this era. Because of what? Because of climate change. We need the central bank to support wider economy policy objectives, to sustain the growth, okay, and to maximize the employment. Why? Because of the effects of the environmental risks and climate change in the financial sector. For example, the traditional rule is to stable the price, but the climate change affect this important rule. How? The climate change may have a significant impact on the agricultural production. When we have like the food prices increase and shortage in supply, this means that increasing in the food prices is an important component of consumer price index. Consumer price index means the inflation. So if the production, agriculture production, and there is shortage in agriculture production, this will reflect on the prices, increase the prices, and then will increase the inflation. So this is one important and traditional rule of the central bank. Because of the climate change, the bank cannot meet this goal anymore. This is one example. And then again, we say price stability and financial stability. But let's see that the climate change threats the financial stability because of the three risks. The first risk is transitional risk. And what I mean by transitional risk, let's have a look on this chart, okay? That moving from the transition risk to the financial instability risk. So what does it mean for transitional risk? Transitional risk describes the uncertainty associated with the policy, price, valuation changes that may occur in the process of mitigating climate change and reducing carbon emission. Carbon emission is something because of the climate change. So the international goals, such as limiting global warming, for example, global warming means the weather, will require powerful policy initiatives. This policy to introduce like carbon taxes, for example, and extensive environmental regulation to reduce the environmental risks. And this will affect the carbon intensive business. So if we put some restriction on the carbon intensive business, some jobs or projects or business which affect badly and reduce more carbon emissions. So by like carbon taxes or any restriction, this might render their assets of the coal and gas and oil and everything. So the bank can do that, can try to limit these transition risks. Otherwise will threat the financial stability risks. And there is physical risks. What does it mean, physical risk? Describe the risk of natural hazard. It's all about extreme weather events. And like, as I said, sea level rise or water stress or heat stress, all this will have direct damage on the economy and indirect damage because of the supply chain. So basically, when we have like abnormal phenomena, like increase in the sea level or increase in the water or decrease in the water supply, all this will affect the agriculture production. And this is the physical risks. So basically, physical risks damage the operating assets and reduce the production of output, okay? And this will affect the projects. Projects here in the financial institution or sector, we call them borrowers. So basically, they go to the bank to borrow some money to operate their business. But if they have raw material shortage in the supply chain and there is some disruption in the transport and the storage and like their capacity, this will affect their production. So they are not going to produce more. There is no output, and this will reduce their revenues. So now they are not going to take loans from the banks, and this will affect the circle of the financial sector, okay? There will be a recession in the financial sector because no projects, no like businessmen, they go to the bank and borrow some money, which will affect the cycle of or recycle of the financial sector. Also, the pressure can combine with the reducing the operating margins and cash flow and the value of the asset that the bank lent to those projects or those businessmen. The third risk is liability risk. Now we say that some business and project, they will stop borrowing from the bank, okay? And some of them, they might ask for compensation. Means now if they are facing potential financial losses, they might claim the bank to compensate them, especially if they have insurance system. Like some project, they insure their business, okay, for something, for a schedule or some like theme. They have insurance with the bank. So if any damage happened to their business, they might go to the bank, ask the bank to help them, okay, based on this insurance system, because they are insured. But the bank doesn't have the money to insure them and to pay them back. And this will affect the liability of insurance system and on the bank system itself. So these are the three basic risks. There are many risks based on the climate change, but these are the main important risks transition risk, physical risk, and liability risk. So far, everything's okay? Do you understand, guys? Do you have any questions? Please raise your hand if you have any questions or if you want to stop me anytime. Okay? All right.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Let's carry on. So now we discussed the concept of the green finance, the concept of the climate change. We try to understand the climate change threats or risks and affect the earth and people. And we try to narrow down that to the business or the financial sector, okay? And we identified the three important and relevant risks: physical risks, transition risks, and liability risks definitely will affect the financial sector. Perfect. So now we try to answer our question. The most important question here is why the central bank should align the finance policies or regulation with sustainable growth and development growth, because essentially this will affect like the production, agriculture production, or anything eventually will affect the financial sector. Okay. Now we will try to know how the bank could stimulate the green finance. Like now we try to identify the problem and how that the bank can stimulate the green finance, how the bank would move from the traditional rule of safeguard or responsible the external environmental externalities and have a very activist role in greening the economy. Try to change the policies in order to keep the economy green, sustainable, and stability. Okay, there are many policies that the bank can use in order to stimulate the green finance. We have here only, I try to make it brief for you and for the sake of time, and we are going to discuss 7 important policies. Let's start with the first one. The first one is green lending principle. Just 1 minute. So what we mean by green lending principle? Green lending principle refers to supportive products such as interest rate offered by the bank for environmentally friendly projects or restrictions of projects with negative environmental performance. Means that we know that the bank gives loans for the business and projects. So he might give green loans or green lending to specific projects. We would describe them environmentally friendly projects, like projects less like carbon less intensive emission, like, or any project doesn't have really drawbacks or bad effects on the environment. Or he can put more restriction or profit on projects with negative environmental performance. So this is we call it green lending or green loans. This will include everything: personal housing mortgage loans, motor vehicles loans, green credit card services, anything might reduce the negative environmental performance of these financial activities. The second one is direct subsidies. In the form of tax benefits or subsidies funding, conditions similar to the energy efficient private home market in certain countries could be considered. Like we are going to see some examples that other countries developed and basically developed countries, because we are going to talk about Italy and United States, that used direct subsidies to support the projects. For example, in Italy, they have a new regulation or target called the new energy consumption reduction target for last year, 2020, which gives some measure and instrument for some tax deduction, okay, like to any friendly project, environmental friendly project, they will give him tax deduction, not to give them more tax, not to impose more tax on them. They will deduct the tax on this kind of projects. In the United States, for example, they issued bonds. In these bonds, the project don't have to pay income tax, okay? And also interest rate from the bond they hold, allowing issuer to offer lower yields, you don't have to pay income tax, or the interest rate will be lower on this bond that they purchase in the financial market. So this kind of subsidies, because they give them some intensive to produce more product, have less negative effect on the environment, like income tax. They don't have to pay the income tax, or they don't have to. They will have lower yields of the bond that they purchase from the central bank or any commercial bank. Also, they might have some requirements, reserve requirements, which will determine the amount of reserve that must be held by the commercial banks. And this will create intense incentives leading to the promotion of green assets or make brown assets. So let's say green assets, that assets support the green finance and the green economy, and we will call other assets that have negative effect on the economy or have some environmental risks on the economy by brown lending assets, okay? And here the reserve requirement will be linked to the bank portfolio. In this reserve requirement, they might allow lower required reserve rates for or toward green or carbon intensive assets. Okay, so they will have lower reserve rates for some projects that we will call them green projects, or they produce less carbon emission. We call them less carbon incentive assets, okay? Because this asset is going for project that will produce less carbon emission. Or they might give higher reserve rates. On the opposite side, they might have higher reserve rates on the brown projects or carbon intensive assets, okay? So they will try to allocate the credit within the project and within business, either green business or brown business, in order to what? In order to promote the green finance and save the macroeconomy. The third tools or instrument that can be used in order to stimulate the the green finance or sustainable finance is climate-related stress testing. So it's really interesting test they scheduled or they structured. By this test, they can fulfill the task of assessing the potential impact that natural hazard may have on the economy. So they will try to test the project and business, okay? If this business have natural hazard, like affect badly, make very mess on the economy, and the health, of course, of the financial institutions and financial system. How they will test that? So they will enable the evaluation of the financial system to adverse shocks. Climate-related stress tests would also be necessary for green macro-prudential policy instrument. And this will allow for the incorporation of identified the capital and risk weight and caps. So by this test, they can use this test to save the health of the financial institutions and to avoid or reduce the adverse shock from some project that they have impact or potential impact on the natural hazard on the economy. And the fifth instrument is loan to value and loan to income. This will limit the extension of credit by banks to certain industries and investment, okay, in specified asset classes. Can also be used as allocative tool to limit the flow of resources to sectors or companies that exceed specified carbon emission targets. So they will use their credit, and this credit goes to the business and a project as loan. So they will just narrow down or limit this credit only for certain industries on a condition, or industries or investment, on condition that this kind of industries and investment has limit flow of resources or doesn't exceed the specific carbon emission targets. Like we call them less carbon intensive projects. And also they can exposure large restriction on some other projects. Like they can limit the exposure of financial institutions to assets entailing high risk or with regard to the green finance and high carbon intensity. And the primary aim might therefore to protect financial institutions against the carbon bubble. So here we can introduce many instruments or policies will limit the carbon emission and will support the project that doesn't exceed the specific carbon emission target or less carbon emission production. Production. All right, this is the instruments that we discuss. How can the central bank stimulate the green finance and try to achieve the price stability and financial stability. So far we discussed the concepts, and then we go and we try to measure or relate the climate change and their effects on the financial sectors and how this will change the sector from green financial sector to brown financial sector. And we try to see how the bank or central bank can move from its traditional rule only to respond to the externalities. No, it's not going only to respond to the bad environmental externalities. It's going to change the policy itself in order to active the green economy. And we got so many instruments as we discussed now together, 6 instruments, like green loans or green lending, direct subsidies, reserve requirements, and this new scheme, we call it climate-related stress testing, and loan to value, like loan only for the project that doesn't exceed the specific carbon emission targets, and to impose large restriction on the other project produce more carbon emission or are carbon intensive project. So far, this is what we have discussed. Now, before we move to the last part of our presentation, that some other countries already applied this instrument. Do you have, guys, any questions or anything is unclear to you or anything I need to repeat?
Okay, guys. Do you have any question for our guest lecturer? Okay, maybe I want to give some feedback for you, Miss Embarika. We know that every country now concerned about the low carbon development or LCD. What do you think for the government policy to develop the low carbon development for their country? What do you think?
So your question here, Dr. Daisy, is we have many countries aware of the carbon emission and the climate change risks, and this risk how they affect badly the economy. And now your question is how they can like reduce, or your question again, like how to reduce or what? Sorry.
Yes, how to reduce the the country now very much pollution, air pollution, and many country and the city now growing to smart cities and develop how to synchronize with low carbon development. So how to reduce, and maybe what do you think the government policy about this?
Okay, as we see
For
it,
example,
that
for
yeah,
maybe for developed countries,
yeah, exactly.
yes,
Exactly. This is very challenging for the developed countries because, as we
yes,
discussed, that the climate change has a very bad effect on everyone on the earth. Particularly important are the vulnerable groups. And we say the vulnerable groups, define the vulnerable groups, poor people, okay, or developing countries, because developing countries have many challenging, like demographic challenging, like very large of population. And also now, because of the population, as you said, everyone, like there is no space, like in a country like Egypt or a country like Nigeria or Indonesia, there are many people on the streets. They use motorcycles, they use cars. Also, they don't have opportunity to work, to have like stable work, so they have their own business. And this might, the business they use kind of coal or oil that have a bad effect on the atmosphere, okay? And this threats the everything, like the atmosphere all around the earth. So we had some interesting instrument. We just discussed now many like nice instruments that the country can use in order to reduce this carbon emission. All these instruments focus on support the project. We call them environmentally friendly projects. Projects that try to, project that reduce less carbon, and we call them carbon less intensive projects. Like we need to try to change the businessman, the owner of the project, their concept. We will say that, okay, if you are going like, and me, for example, I want to open my own business, okay, and I'm trying to borrow from the bank, all right? So the bank will give me application to fill my application, okay, in order to give me the loan. Here in this application, we will try to ask the project, this businessman, okay, or the project at the wall, like to see, to assess if this business that he's going to establish has bad effect or might have bad effect in the future on the atmosphere and the weather or not. Maybe for me, I don't know, like maybe I don't have any idea, maybe I don't have knowledge, maybe my level of education is not high enough, but this will increase my awareness, okay? The bank refused to give me the loan because my project is going to have bad negative effects on the atmosphere, on my country. Okay, there is some items will be written in the application, all right? This may be when I go to the first time to the bank to try to obtain the loan, I don't have any idea, but at least will increase my awareness, will let me consider, will let me think about the carbon emission, will let me know that there is climate change, global warming, and maybe we will see that global warming, carbon emission, and we didn't have any idea that we as individuals might share that these threats. You know what I mean? Like, we need, at least this will increase the awareness of people and business men or business owners to consider that environment. So he will adjust his project, or she will adjust her project in order to, like, not to use this kind of oil or coal, because this have bad effect and increase the carbon emission. And I will, instead of going to buy this material, I'm going to adjust and buy other materials has less bad effect on the environment. So like the green lending, as we said, some subsidies and some restrictions and some reserve requirements, all this kind of instrument will limit the project that has bad effect on the environment. Does anyone else have any questions, please? Okay, we can move to the just 2 minutes. Now we discuss the policy and instrument, and as Dr. Daisy asked, that how the government can or the government can decrease the bad effects. Let me take you to some government, and you will be surprised. This is developing countries try to follow this instrument, that the sixth instrument we just have discussed in the few last slides. Okay, so like now we said the instruments, like we are asking, is it a dream, or is this instrument we can apply this instrument in the real world? I will take you guys to the three different developing countries try to apply this instrument in her economy, okay, or in her policies. First one I will take you to the Latin America, different continent, Brazil. Brazil tried to have some initiatives in order to stimulate the green finance. So the Central Bank of Brazil was among the first central bank to address climate-related environment and to address the social risks and the systemic level through the insurance of building amended that the macroeconomy policy. So they tried to adjust the macroeconomy policy and framework. Specifically in 2011, the Central Bank of Brazil has some requirement on the internal process of capital adequacy assessment, and also require the commercial banks to take the exposure to environmental damages and risk into account. So that in Brazil, they try to apply this, as we say, this the last tool here, the large exposure restrictions. Basically, they try to protect the financial institution against any carbon by limit the exposure of financial institution to assets entailing the high risks or with regard to the green finance. So they try to limit any exposure of financial institution to any assets might have high risk. Like they try to have some restriction on the projects and on businessmen, that so they will not give them, support them with loans and assets if they have high carbon intensity on the environment in Brazil. So again, this requirement aim to price in environmental risks and are a part of the central bank to be the green central bank, or to adopt the green central bank approach, which require banks to evaluate and consider environmental and social in their lending practice. So the Central Bank of Brazil try as Bank do Muniz, other banks like commercial banks, try to limit the loans and assets that these commercial banks use or give in Brazil, to lend the project that will have less exposure to the environmental risks, and try to also, in order to make follow-up plan, to have annual reports outline the risk assessment method and exposure to social and environmental damages. So this basically, the reports would be released hopefully in the few years, because basically this kind of, they started only 2011, and they try to find any results or any annual reports give us some figures how they could reduce the carbon emission, but I couldn't find any annual reports, maybe because we are very busy in the last 2 years with the coronavirus, but hopefully you will find some positive figures in the future that indicate that this kind of requirement could successfully limit the project that have high carbon intensity. Also in China, if we go to Asia, in China, we will be surprised that the People's Bank of China, like different title of the Central Bank of China, it started very early in 80th decades in the last century, in 1980s. This bank tried to have something called the green credit policy, launched with the People's Bank of China, with cooperation with the Ministry of Environmental Protection and China Banking Regulatory Commission, and they have the most comprehensive regularity on the green policies to address the bank system, insurance, and security markets. So that the People Banks of China with the Environmental Ministry and other banking commission try to have a comprehensive regulation in order to address the banking system with loans, insurance, securities market in order to consider the green credit policy. And also in 2006, they have created database credit consists of information on credit, fines, and environmental competence of the firms as a source of information on which to pass the restriction of credit and the companies and sectors. So basically, not only the three parties, the People Banks of China and the Environmental Ministry of Environmental Protection and the Banking Commission, they also try to collaborate and have database. This database could give us some information on the credit and fines and everything related to the green credit policy. And if we see this chart, we will see that the green loans has 20% in the banking system. So green loans means any loans given to a project that support the green economy. So in China, they have 20% of loans given to this kind of project. So they started early and they try to support more this kind of projects. Finally, if we go to Middle East, to Lebanon, also they try to have some initiatives for the green finance. They try to apply this tool, the reserve requirements tool. This tool employed by the Central Bank of Lebanon, and the goal is of influencing the allocation of credit in favor of investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency. So they try to introduce the reserve requirements, the Central Bank of Lebanon, and this reserve requirements is just to allocate the credit for investments that will support renewable energy and energy efficiency. Not only the central bank, the commercial banks also try to increase the share of the green lending project and allow the greener to hold lower reserve. So basically, So basically, they try to also use the green lending principle in order to give loans for greener projects, as I said, and to give them with lower reserve service. Also try to extend the loans to finance a project that entail energy saving potential subject to reserve requirements, and try to underline the investment would contribute to the green energy sector and declare the bank note that finances them eligible for receiving the professional reserve requirement treatment. So as we see here that Lebanon try to apply 3 different instruments: reserve requirement, green lending, and also some subsidies, the direct subsidies, in order to support the green economy, and they were concerned with the renewable energy and energy efficiency. So basically, with this instrument, we can see 3 different countries from different areas of the world, either Brazil in Latin America, or China in Asia, or Lebanon in Middle East, try to apply this instrument and take into account the environmental risks and try to protect the environment from negative effects from climate change and reduce the environmental risks, and try to create what we call the green finance that all investment that take into consideration the environmental risks and the climate change risk, and try to limit these risks and their bad effects on the economy. By this slide, I would end my presentation. And again, if you have any questions, please ask me. I try to put in the presentation some attachment. I know every one of you guys would know the sustainable development goals, but just this is gentle reminder for you. And this chart to see all the macroeconomic impacts of the climate change on all the macroeconomic impacts by the or negative impacts by the climate change on and environmental risks. And this is like how to apply the inclusive green finance. This is like diagram to help you how to prevent, promote, protect the economy. So again, I would say if you have any questions, please don't hesitate, raise your hand and share with us.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Embarika for your presentation. Very great. Okay, dear students, do you have any question for our guest lecturer today? Please raise your hand. Dr. Embarika, now we have 13 students now will join today. There is Nana, this is my student, Nana, and then Linda. This is my student in economic policy and development. So this is great topics about the sustainable and climate change and finance. Okay, we know that what is it, in 2016 in Indonesia, the Financial Services Authority, or we call that OJK, conducted a study related to green bonds in Indonesia. You know that green bonds are the product issued by the government in connection with green financing activities. Okay,
Yeah.
so which are expected to lead the nation towards a green economic condition. So this is, I think, the green financial in developed countries is very challenging. You say that the challenging is on demography. Yeah, our demography is very many population. Yeah, many population. So that the challenging. So for the information, in Indonesia, the investment needed are in order to 300 until 530 billion, with a large portion of the investment in order to critical infrastructure, as well as more environmentally sensitive areas, such as let's say we know the agriculture, and then forestry, and then energy, mining, and also in West. So in addition, financing for small macroeconomics and industry is very critical for maybe for impact to creating jobs and boosting productivity. So I think that today for the majority of banks as well as non-bank financial institutions do not consider environmental and social and governance factor in their lending or investment process as a main consideration. This is I share about the sustainable financial system in Indonesia. So this is our challenge, how to implementation in uh, sustainable financial system in Indonesia. Okay, guys, my students, do you have any question for our guest lecture today? Please raise your hand. So this is maybe last minute for iftar, yeah. So maybe
Maybe.
the student the energy is very low, yeah. So I
Yeah.
hope. Oh, Uni, there any question for Uni Titania Velasta? Okay, Uni. Please, your question.
I wanna ask ma'am about this very interesting sentence from ambition to action. If when it comes to realizing the SDGs, the need for action is important and urgent. So I wanna ask about which one individual or company action are important to take first.
Thank you for your question, but Dr. Daisy might help me to repeat the question again because, like, sorry, the voice wasn't really clear to me.
Okay, Uni, your sound is very low. I cannot hear you. Please, you can speak up again more louder, maybe. Okay, Uni.
I wanna ask about some interesting sentence, ma'am, about from ambition to action. When it comes to realizing the SDGs, the need for action is very urgent. So, which one individual or company action are important to take first?
Yes. Yes. So your question is for SDGs, and the point is.
Which one, which goal is important than the other for is particularly for Indonesia? Is that the question?
Yes, Uni.
You might write your question in the chat box so
For
we
the chat,
can.
yes. Maybe
Yeah.
you can write your question on the chat menu. Uni, you can write the text on the chat. This is Zoom has a chat
Okay, ma'am.
menu. You can write this because I cannot find your point question. Okay, Uni. This is Unit Titania Pelasta. Okay, and maybe Uni can text the chat, and I want to continue with the question now from Fatwa. Okay, Fatwa, please, please you can speak your question for
Okay, ma'am.
Dr. Embarika Mustafa. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I wanna ask, but sorry if my question is not based on the topic now. So my
No worries.
question is the application of green economy in accordance with the Islamic economic system or no? Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Fatwa.
Okay, this is really interesting question, Fatwa. Thank you very much. So you want to see if the green economy could be applied or meet the Islamic values, yeah, or in Islamic system, banking system. Um, I would say Lebanon is an example. They have diverse population, Muslim population and non-Muslim population. I know they don't have Islamic banking system. Their bank system is not Islamic banking system, but they try to apply some restrictions or use some instrument in order to achieve the green finance and efficiently the green economy. And also Dr. Desi now, she discussed with us that in Indonesia, and I'm strongly believe that Indonesia apply the Islamic banking system. They use something called the green bonds in order to support the environmentally friendly projects. This is Fatwa. This is something new. The green finance and green economy is something new, and we will learn from the countries and from their policy. Maybe not today, maybe not next 6 months. Maybe this will take 1 or 2 years more to see and measure if the green economy would support or would align with the Islamic system. But as I said, we have very interesting 6 instruments we discussed today together, and this instrument, I don't think it has any bad or any opposite opinion with the Islamic system. So any Islamic system, banking system, can apply this instrument, and in order to support the project that have less negative effect on the economy. So this is really interesting questions, Fatwa, and thank you for that. And also, if I met with other countries that apply this kind of tools or instrument, I would give a full answer for your question to Dr. Desi, and we will see if this is really could be fully applied in Islamic system country or banking system country. Okay, thank you, Fatwa. Now we can move to the uni question. I want to ask about very interesting sentence from ambition to action. When it comes to realizing the sustainable development goals, the need for action is imperative and urgent. What are the most influential in individual action on the topic? All right. Thank you very much, Yoni, for your question. This is really important. Yeah, we have many goals during the sustainable development, and which one we should think first? I would say the good health. It's important. So I would say we need to think about good health and well-being. We should start with the good health and well-being, because this affects everyone on the society. Yeah? So if we try to make a priority for the health of population, because the population, they are who are going to function and stimulate the economy. So we need to think first of all with the good of health and well-being, in my point of view. What do you think, Dr. Desi?
Yes, I agree with your point of view, Dr. Embarika. So I think the ambition to sustainable development goals is need more energy to how to implement it in the field. So because this is a very challenge how to implementation, not only on the indicators of sustainable development goals, yeah, but how to implement in the field is a very challenge, like that, Dr. Embarika.
Yeah, as the lesson we have learned from the coronavirus pandemic is health is very important. Now we are paralyzed, locked down everywhere in the country because of the virus affect badly our health. So we need to start with the goal. One of the most important goal of the sustainable development is the health and well-being.
I think that is a good topic for the research, Dr. Embarika. Yeah, how to implement in post-COVID. This is the challenge for sustainable development. That the problem sustainable development before the COVID coming, is there any problems, and then after post-COVID coming, we have many problems again. How to implement sustainable development in post-COVID. I think this is a good topic research for us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for it's a really interesting question. Thank you so much, Yoni.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Embarika. I'm sorry, in my home now very any sound my kids because this is afternoon, so this is maybe I can stop my videos. Okay, okay, guys.
Thank you. I just want to remind you, Dr. Daisy, that at the end of my presentation, I give a list of readings and sources. So if anyone would like to go back to read these papers, if you have time, guys, before your exams or after your exams, also I uploaded all these sources given to Dr. Daisy. So feel free to go back to Dr. Daisy or get back to me if you want to get these materials. And
Yes.
thank you very much for today. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Embarika. Maybe I will share your if you don't mind, I will share your email. So maybe if there are any students who will interest with here with these topics, for how to learn, how to what the methodologies to uh, to to how to calculate. Yeah, maybe we can share it, not only you, but maybe we
Please,
can share it. Okay, thank you
please, with
for.
my pleasure.
Okay, thank you. There's any question again for all of you guys? I will give the opportunity for you before we can close this uh, webinar. Okay, guys, you can raise your hand if uh, if there are no question. I think this is our last uh, time, Dr. Embarika, before we can iftar together in Indonesia. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, now in Indonesia, the time is uh, 4 past 14 p.m. Yes. So maybe I can give the what I said, the point of view of my point of view, this opportunity, your activity guest lecture today. So the the sustainable development, green and sustainable development is very important for us, yeah, for in the development country, but this is any challenge how to implementation, and Dr. Embarika give us the how to the mechanism in uh, the country in Brazil and in Indonesia and so on. So I think this is the last time. Dr. Embarika, thank you for your presentation, very your great presentation today. Well,
Thank
ladies and gentlemen, and my students, now we are come to the last our last agenda. Yeah, thank you for Dr. Embarika. I'm sorry for the this is we just have one meeting, but
you.
maybe we will next turn again on semester. We will invite you again in this activity for the
My
next, I
pleasure.
think, yes, Pak Dimas, Mr. Dimas, give you opportunity to, if you don't mind, if you want to join with us. Okay, thank you, Dr. Embarika. Miss, I can call you Mrs. or Miss.
Miss.
Okay. Okay, Miss Embarika, thank you. I'm very nice to uh, discuss with you and my students. Very happy can discuss with you, and thank you, my students, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your join with us today, and see you next week. See you next opportunity. See you next time. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
warahmatullahi
Thank you,
wabarakatuh.
Miss.
Thank you, Miss
Yes.
and Mem Desi.
Yes, Dr. Embarika. Embarika, nice
See you
to
in the
meet
next
you.
time, Miss.
Yes.
Lovely meeting you today.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.